Ghost Ship James is back at it. This time, however, with critical corruption. Now do keep in mind that this is still in beta, so things are most likely going to change. But the core of what is being provided here is still interesting, and to say the least, I quite enjoyed this update. So I'm not really good at the intros and stuff, so I'll just jump straight into the content. Alright, so the Rockpox Corruptor. This is an enemy that can spawn in any mission, and it's definitely an interesting enemy. It has two stages. The first stage is what we've been doing for the past 6 months, where we put the freezing thing on it and then we suck it up. And then the second phase is, or the second stage, sorry. And then the second stage is we shoot the blue heart that is inside it. So it's not really a bad fight, which is good, because that was one of my worries with it. And additionally, a few things to say about the Corruptor. It would be a pretty big quality of life change if after you kill it, it would get rid of all the puddles of Rockpox that it leaves behind passively. Because even if you don't aggro it and start fighting it, it still leaves them. And speaking of attacking it, it will only attack you if you get close to it with their cleaning equipment. So even if you throw C4, throw your axes, whatever damaging types you use on it, it will not aggro you. Which is honestly a step up from the Prospector. So that's a good change, I'd say. Now, with enemies, they added more to the Rockpox enemy pool, which is honestly a good thing, because I feel like... Because now that we've experienced with the new Rockpox enemies, I feel like it kind of makes Season 3 feel incomplete in a way, because, you know, they added a new enemy faction, but it wasn't complete. Now that there are more of them, it kind of feels more complete, which... You know, it feels weird for me to say, but I'd say that this was a good change, even if I don't like the Rockpox enemies and I find them not fun to fight. I would say that this is, in the grand scheme of things, it is a good change. So I'll go through the enemies and say just say some things about them. Firstly, the Rockpox Breeder. I will say that the finding the Rockpox Breeder is like trying to find the fucking Fountain of Youth or something. It took me way too long just to find this thing once. And depending on how the finished product of this video comes out, I might not even be able to find it myself, because by the time of me recording this, I still have not found it, so... You know, we'll see how that turns out. So, I'm not sure how the cryo mechanics work on it, because that was one of my concerns, that it would not be cryable. But, you know, judging from the people I've spoken to, it's not really that bad of an enemy. However, the rest of the enemies I do have experience with, because I did play it, play with them. So the bomber is, honestly, the bomber is fine. Like, all the other enemies are just fine. They're just, you know, pretty much the normal variants of the enemies, but they do with rock pucks. So, you know, not much else for me to say there, other than, you know, they're, just think of normal enemies with, you know, instead of, you know, goo bombers gooing you, they spill their rock pucks in the puddles and stuff, which is alright, I guess. But more importantly, the two new bug enemies. Now, these I'm more excited about. First of all, the Stingtail. I will happily say that the grabbing mechanic is not really a grabbing mechanic. So it's not a K-Leech with legs, as one of my friends very cleverly put it. It is more of a, it pulls you towards itself, kinda like one of the Mortal Kombat characters, and it is armored, so it's more of like a grunt guard with a pull, so to speak. And it's fun to fight. It's not really, you know, it is quite easy to kill as well, and you know, if you do get pulled, it's not really the end of the world, depending on the situation, of course. And you know, I would say that it's quite easy to avoid as well, so that's good. Now the Septic Spreader. This enemy, honestly, it's a little underwhelming at the time of me recording this, because it dies extremely fast, and I feel like because it dies so fast, it's not really, unless that's by design, of course, but I feel like an enemy that is a complete pushover isn't really fun to fight. But its attacks, it's pretty unique. It spreads out, it makes like a AoE, like a Flores Lava kind of effect, which is honestly, it is cool. Though I had a weird encounter with it in the beta where it hit me and then it had like a damage over time effect that lasted for like 10 seconds that just kept damaging me. However, I wasn't really able to recreate it, so I would assume that was a bug, and so yeah, don't really have much else to say about the bugs.
Itoy-san, how do you know about the three blades?
Years ago, I was Chinese.
Years ago. But yeah, the Stingtail and the Spreader, they seem fine. Okay. Huh. Interesting. So what the fuck hit me earlier then? Alright, so the jet boots. The jet boots are an item that you can equip after you find them in a mission, and you complete a little mini game to unlock it, and once you unlock it, everyone on your team can interact with this box and they can use it. How do I feel about the jet boots themselves? They're a cool addition, although I have mixed feelings on them, mainly because of the why they are added. It kind of feels like they just needed something else to add, like they needed just one more thing and they just went to the suggestions tab in their Discord or whatever and just picked like the first one they saw. But it's definitely a cool mechanic. It having it on Gunner, I guess, is gonna be nice, but it does come with drawbacks. The first one being that you can't really airstrafe, but you know, most people won't really care, so should I care? Maybe, maybe not. Oh well. It also added the minigame onto the space rig where you can practice it, I guess, and set your high scores with your friends in your lobbies. So, you know, Flappy Bird and DRG, not much for me to say. You know, it's I guess. I don't really have much to say about it. I think it's not something that caters to me. That's the way I can put it. You know, I don't mean to put anyone down that likes this edition, you know, or whatever, but it's something that I feel like it was a bit random, you know. It's like plenty of people thought that this would be a power-up system, but it was just a jet boots, which is fine, but you know, it just feels like what was the reasoning behind this. But you know, overall, I'd say that the jet boots are a good addition, since you know, it's not like it takes away from anything. Alright, new beer. So, once again, in my discussions and concerns video, I said that I thought that this would be a vanity beer. And I was half right. In my definition of vanity beer, what I meant was things that don't do anything with gameplay. So things like pretty much any beer that isn't a buff beer. However, what this beer does is that it randomizes your outfit and everything about your loadout. Well, except for your pickaxe, because your pickaxe seems to just default to its randomized, to its default cosmetic. It also randomizes your cosmetics too, by the way. And after the mission is complete, it defaults back to what you had on before you drank the beer, which is a good thing, thank God. And also, you can't see your loadout before you head into a mission, though you can see your cosmetics that it randomizes if you press escape. So, you know, that's a good change in my eyes, I think so. And speaking of loadouts, you can now randomize just your loadout as well, which is nice. And you can copy paste them, which, you know, more quality of life stuff. You love to see it. And sleeveless armors. This is, you know, some people like it, some people don't. Personally, one of my nitpicks with it is that it just seems like reused stuff. You know, if you unslave it, then you see that the arms are there. It's clearly taken from other DLC stuff, but you know, overall, I'd say it's a good change. You know, though certain armors it doesn't work with. Now moving on to the miscellaneous part of the changes, I'll just read through them and see if anything catches my eye. Fixed E priorities to prioritize reviving a down dwarf over shield boosting him. This is a pretty good change. Personally, I don't really use perks like that, but for the people that do, I can understand that it'd be pretty annoying when you're trying to revive someone and accidentally using a perk with a pretty lengthy cooldown. Fixed an issue about talking dwarf when second fueling canister. Made patrol blast stand still while you hack them. This is good, because oftentimes they would, when you try to hack them in like over a cliff and they just fall down, that's quite annoying. Exploders only spawn once in missions with volatile guts. That is good. Languages and more miscellaneous stuff, of course. Fixed a bug that caused Scout's flare gun to not damage small enemies such as shredders, maggots, and rockbox blisters. This is single-handedly the best part of the update. Not being able to damage enemies with the flare gun, dare I say, killed the enjoyment of the game. Invisible breeders, I never encountered most of these bugs, but it's good that bug fixes are happening, of course. Rock cracker pods can't land inside each other now. That is honestly quite good. Fixed a bug that made the grappling hook sometimes cancel its shot and have to recharge when you shoot and sprint or land while sprinting. That's also quite good, and a bunch of other stuff that seems to be good. Throwable items now carry your momentum when you throw them. That is quite nice, I suppose. And sabotage missions can now have mutators like they were supposed to. But you know how I feel about sabotage. So But overall, I'd say that these were pretty good changes. So how do I feel about this update as a whole? Well, if I had to rank it on a scale of 1 through 10, I would give it a solid 7 or an 8. The Corruptor, in its current iteration of the beta, and with the beta only being out for not even 2 days at this point, at the time of me recording, it's an enemy that spices up the gameplay quite a bit, and while I do think that it needs a few quality of life changes, which I'm hopeful that it gets, it's quite a fun enemy to fight, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't enjoy fighting it quite a few times. Though I can agree that fighting it in a swarm, it can be quite taxing. But I'm sure that in due time, people will find out strategies to beat it more easily, as I mentioned earlier. The Stingtail and the Spreader are both quite fun enemies, while the Spreader I feel like is a bit too squishy in my eyes, but I'd be interested in knowing what you people think about it. But everything else, it's just more quality of life. You know, the jet boots I'm not big on, but I'm sure that other players are more happy about them than I am, since it's more personal preference. The Flappy Bird is, you know, it's there. It's interesting, I guess. You can set high scores with your friends, I guess. That's nice. But overall, I'd say that I'm quite pleased with this beta. That's it. Have a nice day, everyone.